Okay, so today we are covering planets, houses, and signs in astrology. I thought I'd do an explainer video showcasing all the things you need to know to be able to basically read for yourself, and in that way make it easier for you to be able to get the insights you need to plan out your year or your months, or I know we're like 6 months in so far anyway, but I just thought I'd do a quick breakdown. I will be doing a course on this very soon. I just thought I'd find a quick and easy way for you guys to kind of break down the information, and then if you have any questions or anything, you can ask, and then I can build the course out from there. Anyway, so in the meantime, I've come up with a whole bunch of stuff. I've also got some nice cards and stuff you can look at so that it can keep it nice and visually stimulating. Okay, so the planets we have as nouns, they showcase, for example, here it says nouns and then who, what, and where. Okay, so they do multiple things. So they do the nouns, verbs, and adjectives. So they'll explain who, what, and where this is happening, and what it's about, and who the people are. So it's hence nouns. Verbs, they'll explain what actions you're doing, and then they'll also explain whether it's when it's happened, basically. Because sometimes, say for example, with certain planets, they're about futuristic things. Sometimes they're about things that are very locked up in the past, or things that have happened in the past. And then, say for example, earth signs usually talk about what's happened rather than doing stuff with something that's already manifested. And then in terms of adjectives, they also describe things. So if it's Mars, it's probably done quickly, or the same with Mercury. It's just different speeds. Mars is usually faster than Mercury. So then the houses represent the what and the where, and the when as well, but they represent the actual thing. Now, when it comes to manifestation, from my experience, what I found is that planets are very active. They practically feel as soon as some planets in the sign that I'm in, my ascendant sun or moon's in, I feel like I'm more proactive. I go out there without looking for feedback from the environment, from my life to tell me what to do. I just kind of just go, right, I feel impulsive enough and proactive enough to go out and do it. The signs, from what I've heard about Vedic astrology anyway, are more passive. So they tend to kind of look for feedback first, then look before you leap type. Whereas planets tend to be more act upon the thing. Now, in terms of grade of which ones act more than what, say for example, if it's a masculine sign, they act first and then they look, they take feedback and insights later, and then usually the feminine ones are look before you leap, and hence the cautiousness and all that stuff. And what they describe as ancient version of this is more feminine energy rather than it's to do with masculine, feminine, the way that we describe it these days. So as planets, because they're already proactive and energetic, there's a level of that's happening already, but the signs are even more passive. So if it's almost like a double passive, it will not passive, it will just be receptive of information, insights even more than a planet. So it's not like the planets, the signs. You'll have houses in your chart that will have nothing in them, and that will just have a sign. Doesn't mean nothing's happening in your chart in that area. It just means that it's more kind of looking for a reading of the energy around it before it instigates anything. You will invariably instigate something within that sign for many different reasons. That sign will be activated. So say for example, different days of the week, there's more activity for that specific planet or sign or house or whatever. It will be activated quite naturally, which you don't have to wait for a new a planet to actually be transiting through that sign for you to feel active in that area of your life. So say for example, if you have like, if say for example my fourth house, I have like, no, not fourth, it wasn't empty house, my third house, I have very little, but I still do a lot of self-employed stuff. So it doesn't stop you from doing anything. It depends on what's aspecting it usually, and a whole bunch of what days on the month, that kind of thing. But we'll go into that specifics later. This is just like the basics. So in terms of signs, it's about the what did I put it? The 5 W's, so who, what, where, when, why, and then the hows, and also that the energetic pattern. So, but the signs usually describe like, so if you have to have a manifestation, it's just mainly you and yourself, mostly in your life. So, for example, you don't really go out that much, you don't do that much. Mostly, what will happen is it takes the sign being in that, the planet being in that sign for things to be active. But and the sign usually describes the what it's about. So, say for example, if I want to say, in terms of what manifests, because it's really hard to describe this. So if I have like Mercury in a sign that I would consider like a degree that I would consider like a Leo degree, which is like 5 degrees. I think Babylonians used to do dwads, which basically do similar signs per the same sign per degree as would be in a zodiac chart, kind of like the medieval ones do with houses. They did it with degrees and stuff. Anyway, so the if it was 5 degrees Leo in for 5 degrees Scorpio, sorry, and it was like Mercury there, then I'd be like, because also the signs, I forgot to put the degrees. The degrees act more like verbs as well. So they're very active, like that's what that's the activity you're doing. And then so it'd be a Leo verb, so it'd be being playful as Mercury, so in my communication, because Mercury represents communication, about, and then whatever Scorpion is, so it's about like esoteric stuff and reverse engineering underlying trends and like things that are going on beneath the surface kind of thing. So yeah, the sign shows you what the conversation is about, like what we're talking about kind of thing, what we're focusing on about. So it gives you some nuance to that. Now this, if you're manifesting on your own, it's basically just, you can easily break it down to these things, like just the noun, verb, and the thingy. And you'll be holding each one of those. The degree will hold the verb, the noun will hold the who and the what, the kind of the person involved, and then the house would say which area of your life is happening in, right? And the sun will tell you what it's about. But the more people you have, and the more energy you have in the situation, like maybe it's a crap ton of like stuff going on in your life, then what I found in practice in my own life is that each bit of that reading can be an individual, can be represented by a completely separate individual as well. It doesn't have to be me saying this in this way about this in this house. It could be one person just entirely embodies Leo energy when it all have the Leo degree, and then another person or institution embodies the scorpionic element to that, and then you get what I mean. So it depends on the factors you have at play, and I don't think that I found a single one that explains it directly like this, if that makes sense. But this is what I found in real life, so I just wanted to share that with you. So, and about the house that it represents. So when I say it's Leo house, it will represent the 5th house because Leo is the 5th sign. So, and it will tell you the info that you need. If there aren't enough people or things, situations, the sign itself acts like the house. If no one else is left to play it, basically. So yeah, just explained what I just said there. So right now, I will go into the actual houses and the signs, because they basically, in my opinion, they mean the same thing. If you read the descriptions of them, they mean the same thing. So if you this is my shortcut to astrology and understanding it, because once you get this bit, I do an astro tarot course, right? So I this is my way of like speeding up the learning curve, because I learned this over like 10 plus years. So that they actually mean the same thing. It's just like I said, explained in that little 20-minute something video. That's how you can break it down and make it make sense to you. So I've got like, now I've broken down the cards, the meaning of the houses and the signs. I've grouped them by trines. So trines are basically things that feel easy and compatible together, and things that feel like they fall into your lap. So, and also it's important to remember the trines are the first sign in the house. That there's a relationship between the signs in the houses that are trine. So, say for example, one of them will be a generating, instigating one, like bringer of energy. The other one maintains it, and the other one adapts it, right? So the generating one we call cardinal ones, and the ones that maintain it we call fixed ones, and the ones that adapt we call mutable. Okay, so the first house represents like your body, and what people see and the pressure you give. Okay, now it also, in my perspective, represents the immediate moment. So, like, if what goes on in your first house, so when there's something goes into your first house, your transits through your first house, so the planet transits through it usually means that this will take over your present moment, and in your current unit. Like, say for example, it'd be like it's like live, it's like real time, right now, in the moment stuff, right? So if it's something's going through it, it will affect your month for that thing. If it's that transit is for like 2.5 years, it'll affect that whole 2.5 years that you feel. So anything that in that period of your life will feel like it's entirely covered by this. It also, the sign that represents it is that it correlates to it is also Aries. Okay, let me just give you a good look of that card. It's the energy around you, and it's dynamic and spontaneous. Crusading, impulsive action is likely. That's what this card says. Basically, it's an instigator card, so it generates energy. It gives you. It's really about identity. If you were doing tarot, this would represent the magician card. It's very about what you want and willpower, and the energy you bring to something. It's if you're the person who's the Aries, the person who brings the energy into the group, so they rely on you to kind of lift people up just out of like energizing people. So yeah, so this is in this case this is a cardinal. So this is the beginning of the energy, right? So the fifth house and Leo are the second ones. These ones maintain them. This is fixed. It's a fixed sign, the Leo. So anyway, the fifth house represents where you have fun, romance, create things, and you are proud of things. It also represents like gambling, like for some reason it also represents like astrology, and I think it's because it represents the taking a chance on what you're going to manifest. So it's like that. It's very It's very much about like taking calculated risks, and the fire signs represent in Vedic astrology anyway, the ability, which is from India, represent like they represent the fire signs represent like critical thinking. So if you have to like cut through a topic and then break it apart to figure out what's going on and what's what, fire signs do that very well. And the fifth house is where your ability. It's like it's like the CEO. It's the like boss person type. they're able to make executive decisions, and they're able to maintain their their energy and focus, and they're also able to have it maintained upon them. So they get a lot of attention. The fifth house in tarot would be like the fives. They usually get a lot of attention. That's why people compete for attention, right? So it's the five of wands, five of swords, that kind of shit. Anyway, so this is also in dating there's a lot of competition. It represents a competitive spirit because it's about attention. And to be honest, when it comes to astrology, it's usually about understanding the play of light in life, because it's about light is equals to information, is equal to insight and awareness, and it's because it's just, this is down to the metaphysics of it all. But yeah, so this and the sun represents, and sun correlates to Leo, by the way. So rules. We'll go into that bit after this, but first I just thought I'd just break this down into houses and signs first to make it easier. So the energy is flamboyant, dramatic, proud, and passionate. It focuses on the importance of self-belief. It's a beautiful card, so I just thought I'd let you see it. Nice. Anyways, so right, we'll get to the ninth house. Now this is the immutable, adaptable one, right? So this is broadening your horizons, either spiritually, academically, or on a long journey. And so this is the house, right? So if anything goes on into your ninth house, this is what we assume is going on in your life. It does represent a power of super confidence and enthusiasm with faith, good fortune, and authority. Like, okay, so Sag is about how you manage the long-term energy. So basically, that kind of like you're going on a long pilgrimage. You've decided to have a long. It's represented by like an arrow, like letting an arrow fly through the air that you've directed. I don't know how else to describe that. Towards your goal. So it's about like are the rules that you live by enough to be able to manage the energy so it's adaptable enough for you to achieve your goal. It makes you able to achieve your goal by making it bigger. So anything in that sign is automatically, you try and make it as easy for you to get as possible. Your brain will find it easier to do that. Not just your brain, but whatever planet's in there, whatever's in there or aspects in it, not aspects of what in it will be more likely to be successful. It's more fortunate that way. But it's the rules that you realise that you need to live by in order to be able to achieve the thing that you want. That's why it ends up being the rules that we live by, to be able to kind of create peace and live by culturally and religiously. This is why ritual and all that stuff is centered in this kind of house. It's only, think of it this way, we're only as good as what we've known before. So maybe the rules aren't perfect, but they are, as much as the civilization that we've been living in has realized that, like what they've realized is what we take on as rules. It's also codes of conduct, so it could be even your business's codes of conduct in your office. Okay, so that's the fire signs and the fire houses. Right, so this is the earth ones. But the second house, and this is quite an important house, it's your assets, finances, and things you value. It represents cash flow, and the meeting of minds, the meeting of people, wisdom and understanding of experiences, and then all, because it's not just to do with money, but people make it about money. Taurus represents the energy around you, shows the abundance of nature. It's rich, earthy, and productive, yet relaxed and slow. It's about maintaining, because this one, even though it's the first of the earth signs, is really about like maintaining earth energy. Earth energy is about stuff that's already manifested. So it's going, well, this has already come to fruition. Let's maintain this. So if you have to look in like I think it's the Farmer's Almanac, they will kind of go into, if you find in the Taurus phase or the second a house phase of the new moon, it's about maintaining the growth of the plant that's already growing. And that's where it's where I think it's where you've seen the first buds already, and you're just maintaining them, nurturing it. It's good for gardening and stuff like that, but also it's good for sustainability and maintenance, right? Um, this is why people with Taurus tend to have, like, well, in descriptions of them, they talk about them having long hair. And it's like, worst case scenario is the desperate housewife, in the sense of, like, they spend a lot of time in maintaining and taking care of these things, but the worst case scenario, they don't take care of their own needs and values. They take care of other people more than themselves. So that's the bit that they've got to work on, kind of thing, to balance that out, basically. But they're, they add value to things, so they find it easier to be seen as valuable to others, for for good or for bad. So we've covered the second house. We'll go to its trine now, which is the sixth house. Now this is, by the way, the second house is also to do with coupling things, putting things together. So when you need to, like, come together as a couple, when you're like-minded, when you are figuring out what is complementary to your thing, then Taurus is the sign, and the second house is the house that will show you where that's happening in your life and how to go about doing that in your life. Because each person has their own style based on, like, what planet, sign, house they've got in any of these things. Yeah, and sometimes when you need to step back from these things is also, like, shown by that. Sometimes you need to step back from, like, being like-minded for someone, go, where do I need to kind of, like, look at it. It's the basics, it's the heart of the matter of the concept, Taurus, because it's shallow enough for you to be able to look at it very quickly and briefly. It's the first level of, like, knowing something and memorizing something. And so sometimes you need to take a step back to be able to get back to basics, get back to the heart of the matter and the fundamentals of the thing. And then that way you figure out what to do to add value to the situation. Do you get what I mean? So it can work that way as well. It doesn't just have to be like you either have or you don't. It can be more intricate. Anyway, so right, going into the sixth house now. This is the work, health, and duty area of your life, and Virgo is the sign that it correlates to. I'll give you that sign. This is a pretty card. You should know. And then the Virgo one. The energy around you is dutiful, hesitant, and humble, with a discriminating, diligent, and painstaking air. Okay, so because this is about, I call it the sorting. Well, you call it the sorting hat or whatever, but it's the sorting what's already physically manifested thing. So it's like when you have to figure out, does this fit into this bag or not, when you're throwing things away. You're trying to get to, like, the best version of the thing that's already physically there, that you've already put. So say, for example, in Taurus, you've been batching things and put things that are alike together. So you've got this and this area for that, and this and this area for that in your room, wherever. That you're going to be like, say, for example, that's my, like, chilling out area, that's my work area, that kind of thing. So all your work areas, stuff is there, all your stuff is there. But then you have to, like, sift through it to be able to go, have I labelled it correctly? Labelling stuff is very much a Virgo thing. They're perfectionists about labels. They will put things in boxes. They like boxes. It compartmentalizing stuff and lists and sorting stuff out. That's why they're seen as, like, very administrative and, like, very humble enough to do the dirty work and get stuck in to be able to sort things out. And they like, they could be into nature, maybe not taking hikes and stuff, but, like, maybe they like a potted plant here or there, kind of thing. And they're very much about efficiency. If you know Virgo, if you are a Virgo, they will try and find the most efficient route to something. So they usually have decent systems and processes. Actually, signs in general do, but the reason is because they're trying to each other, and this is how you build a decent system. So say you go through a Taurus, you batch things up, put things together. With the Virgo, you're putting things in the right labels and seeing, does it really fit here and does it really fit there? And through that, you identify what it's good for and how to problem solve for it, because it's a problem solving Virgo. And then by the time you've done that, you head to the 10th house and the Capricorn, which is what they call it, the greatest of all times, the goat, right? So it's the with this one, it let me just say, sorry, I don't know, I just got distracted by the screen for some reason. But anyway, so it's the energy around you, serious, materialistic, hardworking. It bestows shrewdness and cautious ambition. Capricorn is where you have leveled up to the next level, but you, because you started at like the bottom of the mountain, you realize that you kind of like are in over your head, you're overwhelmed. You've done more than what one person can do. What one person can do is an Aries thing. By the time you hit 10 and Capricorn, it's you scaling up to a corporation level. So you are doing so much now, you're overwhelmed that you need a system. And so this is how do you automate things in your life so things run on autopilot. And I will also have this in my course about how to deal with manifestation and flow and motivation. And when you're overwhelmed is when you bring in a system, or you start tapping into your subconscious in order to do pattern recognition, so that you can do things on autopilot more, because your subconscious can really it can take in way more information. It's the majority of your brain. It can process more, and it does things so fluidly. It will look like you're an expert at something, like in terms of knowing how to maneuver and navigate through things, just by what you pick and what you choose. Even though consciously you didn't have to think through every single step of the way. So Capricorn is what gives you that. Is the trigger. So when it generates, what it generates in nature is the structure. So I would say it starts triggering that the subconscious to build up at that pattern recognition. Yeah, some of that is neuroscience and some of this is astrology, obviously. So your achievements and status in the world is what it describes. I just wanted to show you the card because it's pretty. But yeah, it represents someone trying to, go through tough stuff and like go to the top of the mountain. In fact, Capricorn represents mountains. So if you see one, it's a Capricorn thing. If you see the top of one, it's an Aquarius thing. Okay, so now we are at the air signs side of it. Let me just take a drink. I just wanted to do this in one go. Okay, not bad for time. So then we're at the third house. Okay, these are the desire houses, the 3rd, 7th, and 11th. This is your potential to learn something and your local neighborhood. I'll show you the card. And the Gemini the energy is communicative, mischievous, lively, witty, and informative. Stimulating exchange is possible. So it basically, like, third house represents like the learning curve of something, like the initial stages of learning something where it's fun and playful and you're just curious and maneuvering around. And that's what gives you the courage. It's like the curiosity gives you the braveness. So like, when they're curious to kill the cat, the cat was so brave because it was curious. You know what I mean? So it allows it talks about that kind of courage that comes from curiosity, that drives things like being trying to do things yourself. So do it yourself attitude. Well, how do you say, the courage to try things out for yourself, the braveness that way. Well, the self-employment side of it is there. Aries actually represents the doing things alone thing, right? And the wanting the freedom to do things on your own. But the curiosity that makes you go after your desires and wanting to learn more. And I just wanted to see what would happen if thing, and testing out stuff. The first 20 hours of learning something that gives you a concrete understanding of it, so that you can like learn your first few songs and perform it and whatever, or doing stuff that's creative even. It's the first learning curve before you become a perfectionist about it and maintain it long term kind of thing. So yeah, it does represent neighbors and communication, news, facts and non-facts, such as like misinformation. So it can represent the news, but it can also represent social media in the gossipy, crappy kind of way. Um, so, yeah, it's a mixed bag. I think that's the main thing for that for now. Okay, the seventh house is, oh, by the way, with this is a mutable sign, so it's learning, searching, and adapting information. The third, seventh, and 11th are all about information and communication, and I'd say thought patterns and ideas, right? So this is you adapting an idea. Your generally the moon is your generic thoughts. When I'm talking thoughts like notifications and updates about your body, like oh I'm hungry or I feel this, is very much moon. The the air signs are really to do with like an actual idea, or a thought pattern that it like like cost benefit analysis. So it's not exactly an idea. It's not a concrete idea yet, but that ability to weigh things up that way. That's that. It's how you use information to then like develop your thought patterns. Yeah, because I just don't see it as um like you could say for example, you could say Taurus is a concept or a fundamental thing that you've got in your mind, but it really isn't playing with the idea. It's just memorizing it and honing in on the basic factors of it, and then weighing it up to say, I value this, I don't value this, and that's it. Whereas, like with the air signs, it's more playing around with it to say, well, if I went as far with this as possible, especially in the seventh house, seventh house we're going to go to, but the third house is about playing around with it to try different things because you're curious about the idea. So you're playing around with it in your head in so many different ways, very abstract kind of way, kind of detached. That's a very air sign thing to do. So by the time you hit the seventh house, you're playing devil's advocate with the idea. So you're like, well, on the pro side, you can do this, or if I have to play devil's advocate, the counter argument to this would be this. In terms of the return investment on my time, energy, and money and stuff, it would give me this and this. So maybe it would. I couldn't use it for this, but then maybe I could use it as leverage for something else. So that kind of mentality is very Libra and very seventh house, because they correlate with each other. So every life is about long-term significant partners, romantic, business, or family. It's about one-on-one relationships and one-to-many. So one-to-many would be a singer and her fans, the queen and her loyal subjects. You get what I mean? The one-on-one obviously would be your business partners, your clients, your your significant other, whatever label you've got for that. But they're long term, right? So this energy is diplomatic and gracious. It seeks harmony and balance in relationships. When it's going in, depending, like think of it this way: when these are themes that are brought up by the sign. So there's like, say for example, if you've got Libra, but you've got something in Libra, but it's clashing with Libra, then it means that these themes are under threat somehow. It doesn't mean that because they're under threat that this. It doesn't mean that. Does it make sense? It just means that the theme is present. Like all these signs and houses and all that stuff, they're just themes brought into your life, and then how it plays out and how you play it will determine the result. And also, because if life is about free will and choices and how you flow well with things, and like how you deal with information, really, if that makes sense. So, in any of these things that factored, every aspect of your life, you and everyone in it and everything in it, has the ability to change the probability of what it manifests, and what comes into your timeline and which timelines you're on. So, like, um, huh, does he miss me and want to see me in his course? I think that's a message from someone. Let me just do a quick card pull for that. Let's see what the cards say a little bit. Just got a message on there to say it's the first one. Okay, I'd say my feelings go yes, but then see what the cards go for it. Page of Coins, so it's like it would mean yes, long time, like wanting long term potential for this connection, and there's been a lot in the past that has made that person feel like that. But he's kind of just observing it curiously, like in the card. I'd say okay, so there's willpower around it because this is a magician, and he's kind of he's probably got what he needs in order to be able to make that decision happen. And then I'll just say one more card. I'd say the universe. So it's like this is a 21. So this is represents like you haven't finished the loop or the cycle. So it's really it hasn't graduated to a higher level about thinking about how to like take this to a higher level and be more mature and see the long term potential of where he's going to put his energy and how it's going to pan out. So I feel like there's a wanting desire and like routine or a habit about it, if that makes sense. Like he's been thinking about this on a consistent basis, but he's kind of taken a step back in terms of putting his energy into it at the moment. There's 2 of Wands reversed, and then just one more, the Queen of Cups. Okay, so but yeah, I do feel like he feels very in touch with his emotions about it and wants to maintain it in terms of the relationship and the emotional connection. So yeah, that's just a quick little side reading. So yeah, okay. Let me just continue with. Right, we covered Libra. Like we started off with that reading, it's to do with Page of Diamonds. That's to do with Aquarian energy. So that's where the cosmos grants wishes and luck, friends, and social occasions. So it does allow for like meeting people in social groups and networking and stuff. So that would work for that person. And also the energy is freedom loving, rebellious, idealistic, and technological. So there might be some version of like technology that comes with this. So I don't know, maybe via text, via social media, connections, or like checking out each other on things like that. The 11th house represents like the Nile, so it does actually show where you're in a kind of like deserty kind of atmosphere. Like there's not a lot available to you. You're restricted in parameters, but then the flood waters kind of come through that allow you to like nurture something long term, and then over time, by the time it hits like Virgo time frame, you get like a full bloom of all your like plants that you know are able to harvest then, and take to market by the time it hits Libra. So I'd say about that kind of time frame if you for that lady for that person, sorry. And then I'd say with Aquarius, it does represent that in general. So if you've got anything that starts in Aquarius month, expect that kind of fruition in terms of being able to get something to happen by Libra. That's where it's more lucky for you. But yeah, okay. So that's the air sign zone, and then we get into the water signs and the water houses. So the first one is the fourth house. Just FYI, the Aquarius is a fixed sign, so it's maintaining communication, but long term in a massive scale. So this is like the internet, because it's like decentralized things. So decentralized, where you don't have like a central hub of power. You just have everyone little like nodes of individual cells basically able to do their own thing. It's very humanitarian card. So people just doing their own thing and freedom loving kind of thing. Anyway, so right, so the fourth house and water signs. It says your home and the roots of your being. It's a very important card actually. Um, this I think it's a really underrated sign and a really underrated house. Here it says the energy is emotional, sensitive, caring, and loving. It may concern family, a mother, or a child. Okay, so basically, it represents your roots. It represents what you do with the knowledge of like your. Say, for example, by the time you're 3, you have put together a map of the world, what you know exists, and you then start navigating with it, psychologically speaking. Um, so the fourth house represents you navigating the world through that, and it represents your conscious emotion. So when you feel like when you say I feel this, is you're coming from your fourth house pattern. It basically tells you where you need to generate energy. You need to top up resources. So it says what's in your like food cupboard. It says what you need to top up in terms of like petrol or like things like your phone card, whatnot. It's just any resource that you need to top up, and it's your base of operations. Before there were houses, it'd be where your camp was, that kind of thing. So yeah, it also represents extending the generated, because it's a cardinal sign. It generates emotion or generates relationships or generates the dynamic between things, right? The water signs represent the dynamic between two separate things. Like it's kind of like a binding agent kind of thing. So it represents that the ability to go out and to start generating that, and it could be the person who's like the good boss who makes sure that everyone who is ill when they're ill, they send the cards at work so that they feel like their coworkers care. Or the family member that insists that people come over for an event, so they keep the relationship between the family together, even if it doesn't really matter what gender they are, kind of thing. And it's also, it will top up the resources you need for your body. So if you don't, like, say for example in the tarot, the four swords is usually the card that says you've been so caught up in your thoughts and your thinking and you're going out there following your desires, because the air signs are represented by swords, that you haven't nurtured yourself. So you haven't got enough water, you haven't had enough sleep, you haven't had enough nourishing food to eat. The fourth house represents nourishment. So it's really, really important, and it gives you the flow of your life. It gives you the flow of your workday. So say for example, if you think about like when you felt the most nourished is when you were a child, but that's because you have a lot of structure around your life, and to make sure that you are nourished on a regular basis. So things happen before meal times and after meal times, and therefore you're given a decent flow of life, and everything more evenly paced out. The more you get into your machine-like mindset in terms of like, oh, I have to work as much as possible, or I pursue my desires so much by going out there and doing socializing, loads of stuff, but I haven't nourished myself, then you end up like not having a good flow of life and finding it difficult to manifest yourself and to feel motivated. So you burn yourself out very, very easy, and it's very easy to do that with the Four Swords. So yeah, it's important to remember that one. That was a very key one. It's a bit problematic these days. So the eighth house, the transformational area of your life, it's about shared resources and intense emotions. So yeah, like I said, it's not just that the water signs are not just resources. It's not just basically they share a relationship. Whatever's in a trine to each other, it's the same thing. If you just remember, like, say for example, the fire signs are all about energy and willpower, um, and like, do you feel energized to do something, and decision making, that kind of stuff. So they will go through if you they generate it, maintain it, or adapt it. And this one's the water signs is all about flow, the dynamics between things, and resources, being resourceful. So the eighth house is about maintaining resources. So it's what you do to maintain it and what other people do to maintain theirs. Sometimes when someone's trying to maintain theirs, they try and take yours. That represents a lot of the eighth house energy where people betray you for sure. And where you might feel like you need to get rid of people because they're trying to take from what you have. So in terms of like you can't maintain yours because other people are being so toxic that they need to leave, kind of thing. Right. So Scorpio is intense, masterful, thoughtful, and magnetically charming, but it's also secretive and possessive. Um, Part of the secretive is because people are trying to take your stuff. The possessive is like the fear that things are going to be taken from you because when you have something to maintain it, it means other people start getting jealous and therefore they start bullying or like they start trying to take stuff from you sneakily. So as a Scorpio or anything that is in your eighth house, you'll be so used to having to guard because people are constantly trying to take it. And so you won't like sudden changes to it. You can cope with it, but you don't like to have to cope with it. um, and It's also because you maintain a lot of energy into it. Think this way: anything that you put a lot of motivation into, it becomes something that nourishes you, and then other people kind of want more of, and then they find that it's nourishing itself. Um, and it can kind of like draw people in, if that way, if that makes sense, because you're able to hold the energy. Um, so that's the eighth house and Scorpio. And then the 12th house is the adapting of the resources and the emotions and your I forgot to say with the water signs they're also psychic and emotion, so to do and creativity. So it's about in that the Scorpio sense is maintaining psychic connections and being maintaining your creativity, maintaining your emotional life, and what you have to do in order to do that. And sometimes in order to maintain your emotional life, you have to kind of get rid of people because it's like from your life because you just like they're too toxic. So it doesn't necessarily mean forever. It can, especially with Scorpios, because they tend to kind of keep a lot of people in their life if they get very attached to them. So they tend to kind of go. I'll just put this up there so that you can see. They tend to kind of go, well, I will make sure that they can't get this aspect of me. So they shut down like some aspect of themselves to that person. So they're like, they've proven themselves this way. I won't. If they basically the way that Scorpios operate is kind of like they'll put you on a pedestal first, and then every lie and every kind of like betrayal puts you further and further lower on your pedestal. And at some point, you'll either meet them at theirs or start being lower than them in terms of like their estimation of you. So then that's when they kind of tend to go, well, I can't like keep that person in my life. This is getting too toxic, and I can't deal with this anymore, kind of thing. Um, but they usually wait till like last minute. It's like they're not first to do it. It's usually because they feel like they can handle people's dark sides, so they tend to kind of. It's like someone who's like playing with fire. It's like it's too much. So let's get to the 12 and the 12th house. This is the area of your life that is overwhelming. You yield to a greater cause of power. It's a surrender one. The energy is wistful, endlessly loving, compassionate, and forgiving. It confuses and often resolves. This is a bit too like. How to explain it? 12th house. 10th house is like overwhelming in a way, in a very materialistic sense. Like, I've just taken on too much work. 12th house is overwhelming as in like it's potentially an existential crisis. It's an everything problem. I have a problem with everything. You know what I mean? Not just this area of my life that's overwhelming. It's like it will it doesn't necessarily bring you to your knees. It kind of it just makes you feel like I have no more energy for any of this, and not even in a kind of, I know people say that a lot because people are more into protecting their energy, but like it's kind of the one way you just feel like if you're religious in any kind of way, it will make you go, you know, Jesus take the wheel and all that stuff. Um, if you're not religious, it will just make you go, I give up. Like I can't. I don't know what to do with this. There's nothing left in me to give. What am I supposed to do, kind of thing. So you know, it's on the upside. It's wistful and endlessly loving, compassionate, and forgiving. It confuses and softens, resolve. Is very good at like sidestepping the issues, and like it doesn't look for confrontation. It tends to kind of like dissipate negative energy. So it's just the kind of thing like why when you're at the kind of full capacity of like what you put your emotional energy into, you don't want to be. If anything just takes too much, you're just like I'm not even going to say anything. So they can be very peaceful that way, or just very. It can seem very chill, even if they're really hardworking, very um, like go go go, they or even bossy, they will still be more chill than their equivalent in a different sign, basically. Um, so yeah, let me just get some more to drink. Long video. Okay. Okay. So yeah, and it's about forgiveness. It's about all the ages. So say for example, like you know when you have to do the best of, it'd be that's like all the compilation CDs, like they're very Piscean. So say for example, the best of the 80s, it takes everything within that period and then puts it into subcategories. Um, you know, it's that kind of like it is as far as we know, and I think it is as much as we can handle, both downstairs and upstairs in terms of like the heavens and the earth. It's like you can't be. You know, there's a 12 cycle, and then you just go back round to like another higher level of the 12, and then you keep going in that spiral as far as like esoteric stuff is concerned. Um, and it's where you dissolve stuff. It's where you kind of because we haven't matured past it as creation itself, and there's an element between the good and evil balance where at some point we haven't matured enough to be able to like resolve our stuff so that we can just continue moving up without having to dissolve something. There's some things you just have to let go of entirely that you can't repurpose. Scorpio is about repurposing. This is just about like letting it go, letting go and letting God. Like there's nothing else you can do about it. In order to get to the higher level, the only thing you can do is let go of the completely unnecessary things, or things that are just holding you back, basically. So this is the subconscious mind, the dream world. When you talk about the 12th house, things that happen in your dream world, they're kind of like a Dali painting. They're very abstract, but in a very dream-like sense. Whereas like Aquarius and like the fire sign, sorry, the air signs are really abstract in a very kind of like detached but practical sense, not in a dream-like creative sense. This is like the 12th house is more like dream-like, like fantasy. Um, you know, it can make you very emotional to have stuff in this houses because anything goes through these houses, you're more likely to feel emotional and want to cry, even if you don't cry. For those who do cry and they're quite emotional, this is gonna make a lot of stuff happen like that. So yeah, so we've covered now all the signs and all the houses. I'm just going to cover the planets separately. Am I going to do it separately? No, I'm going to do it all in one video. So So now we've got ones that the planets that correlate to the fire signs, and the Aries, Leo, Sag combo that I'm talking to you, that they're all trines, which means that things are more easygoing compared to, say, for example, if you have something in Aries, it will help you, the stuff that you're doing in Leo and Sag work well, and it just comes easy to you that month. Sorry. So, and they're also very compatible. So Mars, Sun, and Jupiter work really well together. So Mars represents in the fire signs represents Aries. The part of Mars by itself rules. When it says rules, it just means it correlates with, really, because it's not like it actively tells it what to do. It just means that it correlates with it. So one part of Mars rules or correlates to Aries, and it also correlates to Scorpio. We'll talk about this Scorpio connection later, but it does Aries and Scorpio, so it's that combination. With Aries, it generates energy. With Scorpio, it maintains emotions and relationships and dynamics and stuff like that. So with in the fire sign combo, like Mars, Sun, and Jupiter, the Sun maintains the energy, and then the Jupiter adapts it and learns from it. So if you have any of these planets in a sign, they're very compatible with each other and they work well with each other. The Sun represents the king, Mars is the soldier, and Jupiter is the subject matter expert, the guru, the priest. So if you ever see that in a film or something like that, they usually work well together, if that makes sense. And they're usually friends. The soldier usually bows down to the king. The priest or the subject matter expert helps the king, if that makes sense. The sun, obviously, like Leo, represents the CEO, the king, the decision maker. The subject matter expert has been on pilgrimages and learned a lot about stuff. And this is where because, like I said, the fire signs know they're insightful. So this is Aries and Mars are to do with, like, in the moment, real time insights. The Sun is about medium term insights and things that you learn on the job and over a medium period of time. So in your 30s, by the time you're 30s, you know quite a lot about life. You're not like the old man who knows a lot of stuff, but you do, or the old person, but you are able to make calculated decisions and take gambles that are decent and boss-like. By the time you hit Jupiter, it's like the subject matter. You're the old person who can impart knowledge and wisdom and know how to be adaptable. You've got to this stage with your energy and putting your willpower out there and getting what you want by being adaptable, which is why it's a Sagittarian thing. Okay. When it comes to Jupiter, it also represents Pisces, right? So that is to do with all the, like, letting go and all that stuff I just said to do with the 12th house of Pisces I just showed. I will go into the water signs version of this. So that was just the combination that suits the sun. That's more to do with the fire signs at the moment. But Mars and Jupiter also come into play when it comes to the water signs because of Scorpio and Pisces. So we'll go into that after this. But first, I wanted to cover the ones that are to do with the fire signs. And then I'm going to go into these. I'm kind of grouping them based on what's compatible in a chart. So if you see a chart, you see the Sun, Mars, and Jupiter, you know that they're really compatible and they can help you with decision making in those kind of ways. But obviously, the Sun maintains insights, so maintains thoughts of like critical thinking and is able to maintain energy and light on itself, let alone shining a light on something else. It can be where you get to be the center of attention for your own thing. Right, so the second batch is Venus, Mercury, Saturn, and Uranus. The reason why I picked these, for the earth sign ones, these ones are called Rajasic, I think. In Vedic astrology, Venus, these ones are like they actually, these two are majestic. That one's a malefic. Saturn's quite harsh, because it's about time, and time kind of limits you and does a whole bunch of things that are less fun. But Venus and Mercury are seen as like fun, good time people. Venus has fun in terms of like can be the princess who gets the mostest. This is the prince. The Mercury's the prince. Venus gets to like dress up in nice things. Mercury gets to have like fun and be childish and mischievous and all that stuff. But these ones work well together, Venus, Mercury, and Saturn in general. Right, so when it comes to the earth signs, let me go into it. Venus represents Taurus, Mercury represents Virgo, and Saturn represents Capricorn. Like I said with Taurus, it maintains what's already physically manifested. It helps to add value to things. With Mercury, it sifts through all the stuff to do with Virgo. It's stuff that's already manifested. It will sort, it will perfect. And then with by the time it hits Saturn, it knows what the limits are of the thing that's already manifested, because it's like seeing it through all this stuff, through either putting it through conceptualizing it, through like perfecting it in terms of like identifying exactly what it's about, and then creating a system around what it needs, because it knows its parameters by the time it's Saturn. So that's the Earth sign version of them. Mercury does represent information. It's like the Gemini and Virgo in one. This is like Taurus and Libra. Venus and Taurus and Libra are to do with weighing things up, whether you're putting things together, and because they're adding value to each other, that's why you're putting them together, and you're trying to choose whether they should be put together or put separately. By the time it hits Libra, it's like cost benefit analysis to see whether they should be together or not, but they're complete opposites. They're not like-minded. They're the other end of the spectrum to each other. That's why you're comparing them. When it's Mercury, it's the Gemini is very much to do with it desires and curiosity and learning, searching, and adapting new information. This, by the time it hits Virgo, it's how sorting out the things that have manifested. So maybe it might be information, but it could be something you've already created, because it follows Leo, which is to do with your creations. So once you have through the sorting process, you might have created a resource for Mercury in Gemini to look through, because Gemini itself represents the search process. If you're talking coding, I would put it down to like Gemini is the search, and then Virgo is the sorting. And through searching and sorting, you have a lot of stuff to do with the internet that exists. So you think search engines. And then Saturn is like structure, so it's about like generating structure. And then that's the Capricornian side. So it builds any form of structure. It could be physical, like a building, or it could be like an idea kind of thing, like you put something on a list. The structure of it is like for some reason I'm just thinking software engineering, so it's data structures, Capricornian. So it helps you to kind of go through things systematically, systemizing things, checklists. It's all about authority and being the boss in your life, but in a kind of middle manager kind of way, where you know what you've got to do. You've been set up by something else or somewhere else, maybe to do with that you have to follow things to be legally compliant. So you have a checklist of stuff that you have to do, and that checklist follows the law, if that makes sense. So the lawmakers decide what you have to give a shit about, but the Saturn, the boss in you, the middle man in you, will have to adhere to that. and it's about being accountable. So you hold yourself to account, and that is how you do Saturn well, and Saturn treats you well. So that's the Capricorn, the Earth sign version of these planets. With Aquarius, because that's what Saturn also represents. It's about more the rebellious stuff. It's more representative of stuff that was also representative of what Uranus says, which is your potential for sudden change, enlightenment, and awakening. So when you move on to the air signs version of these planets, so here it's Libra for Venus, and then Mercury it's Gemini, and Saturn is Aquarius. You've got it's like Uranus represents the Aquarian, in my mind anyway, the Aquarian aspect of Saturn. So it's very rebellious and freedom loving and all that stuff. But it's really about like being uniquely you. And if you think about the 2 digits of 1 in Aquarius, it's about 2 individual parties trying to get on. So think of it like any revolution that's ever gone on. There's usually it usually ends up being 2 major factions within that, and they're both having a tug of war about who's going to actually end up in power. If that makes sense, you mishandle that stuff, neither will win out in terms of like success. They'll be able to take over, but they like most revolutions do, they don't end well. They end up with like the country backwards in terms of like not being able to be anywhere near the height of its like success before it for another few hundred years. You know what I mean? It's that kind of, it can be detrimental to be revolutionary if the individual parties are not balanced out. So with those 2 individual digits, they have to be balanced out. So if you just have rebellious for the sake of a no sense version of rebellion can be dangerous, but a balanced version can be quite good. Which is why the 2 individual digits of Aquarius, if you add it to 1, add it to 2, numerologically, that's where you get the balance. And 2 is about the mediating and balance of it. And so like, yeah, it does, if you ever have Venus in Aquarius as well, it's about mediating so that you can have both people be individual and freedom loving, but and unconventional if they want, but it balances out. If it doesn't balance out, it becomes kind of dramatic unnecessarily. Anyway, so yeah, always remember like Venus. I'm just going to read out the cards for Venus. So Venus is the part of you that desires beauty, success, indulgence, and valuables. It's important to remember this. And then Mercury is how you think, communicate, write, talk, and travel. Because it does really short distance travel with a third house, or like Gemini energy. And Saturn is the part of you that accepts challenge to gain wisdom. And it's the kind of wisdom that's like, I'm cautious now about this as an older person, because I know not to waste my time and energy on this, because I've tested things out. It's about trials and tests of life. And then Uranus is your potential sudden change, enlightenment, and awakening. So we have covered those now. Right, I will go on to the next stuff, which is, like I said, more to do with the water sign based planets. I'll go back into how Mars and Jupiter is connected to this as well. So we've got Moon that is connected to, Cancer, the sign, and then also Mars, Jupiter, Mars and Pluto, because Mars represents Scorpio in this situation, and Pluto also represents Scorpio, this one, and Jupiter represents Pisces, and so does Neptune. Okay, so the Moon represents your unconscious, sensitive, inner emotions and responses. I wouldn't say it's not the subconscious. I think it's just like, I would put it down to conscious emotions, because it's the emotion that you know you're feeling. Well, like when you're feeling hungry, you're feeling, when you're meditating, we know you have to like. Okay, so I'm just getting readings in the middle of all this, so just bear with. Is he currently in love with you? Because your feelings. She's doing tarot in the middle of this, so try to bear with. Okay. Okay. Okay, so what I'm getting from this person is he's acting like he's okay, but he's not exactly. Like he's got the Ten of Cups reversed. So that is more to do with like he's feeling overwhelmed by the emotions he's got, and he's trying to act like everything's hunky dory and fine. Um, I'd say the magician is like he does have willpower about this and wants to. He feels like he wants to do something, and he feels like there's something destined about it that's making him feel like this theme is present in his life. He has to deal with it. But he's also got the 23 in this one. Is like it's kind of like a major arcana, it's the nightmare. So that's more to do with rebellions. For me, it's like the Aquarian card. So it's kind of very. He wants his freedom though. So it's not about following someone else. It's more like this modern day version of like I just want to go about doing my own thing without having to be beholden to anyone in terms of my time. So it's kind of that's why he's limiting his time and how he's spending time with you. If that makes sense. So it's like not making time inside for you, which isn't great. But and that's where it can feel like it's he's taking the piss basically. It's the King of Coins upside down. Um, so I don't feel like he's like the greatest for like relationships. He's the kind of person to accidentally end up with someone long term than intend on it intentionally kind of thing. And you've got the tower here, so it's almost like some part of him that's acting very machine-like will have to kind of like dissipate in order for this to make it worth it. There's going to be a moment where this is it's probably you're going to feel like too much emotion about this, if that makes sense, and that's what's going to make you feel like you're you won't like have an outburst at him because you're too withdrawn in order to do that, if that makes sense. But it will allow you to kind of like purge any kind of like issues that you have with him in terms of like feeling stuck, because it feels like you feel limited by his like just hanging around but like not being there kind of thing. And the Eight of Swords underneath is kind of like upside down, sorry, shows that it's like you're trying to reverse engineer what the hell is he doing, what's he thinking, how's he going about this kind of thing. And that's kind of limiting you when realistically you do have like that kind of like old soul connection, like you guys have been like it's almost like you feel like you've known him for a very long time, or even though you haven't kind of thing. um so it's kind of difficult to just like let go of, and sometimes you do feel like you do kind of he tops you up energetically, if that makes sense. He kind of makes you feel revitalized. You both do for each other, so it's confusing. It really depends because it feels like it doesn't matter like who you're with right now, your dual relationship, if that makes sense. You've got a new beginning relationship coming up, and it feels like you've pretty much set on having one. It's not so much that it's like if he doesn't like step up, then you're not holding yourself back for him. You've kind of made your decisions. You've got the Justice card here, and you're doing what's right for you, kind of thing. But you're also not about like begging for anything or like putting ultimatums up either, because you just want to like he either gets it or he doesn't get it, and you're not wasting your time at the same time, because you're in a period of your life in general where you're fulfilling a lot of your own wishes and hitting a lot of long-term targets, things you put your energy into. So it's not it's not clear cut. It does feel like he'll still try. I feel like there's a lot of connection, especially physical, that he like desires out of this, if that makes sense. He feels very intense about you. Um, you haven't really sorted that side of your life out with him yet, but it feels like there's a lot of intensity. But it feels like you're not walking away just yet. it feels like, honestly, it's like, it feels like it'll take you about 6 months before you make that decision. It'll probably take like a couple of other interests coming towards you before you kind of go, I could have an easier time elsewhere, kind of thing. Um, yeah, and you're more likely at this time to find somebody that way because your mindset's on moving forward and ending the cycle, if that makes sense for yourself, which is at 21. Because it feels like you feel like you've been stuck on loop for too long. And then you got the Eight of Wands. Yeah, it feels like everything slowed down in that area of your life, and just this, you feel like you've put so much energy. There's so much energy coming at you, but at the same time, it's also random, like in terms of like the interest in you. So it just feels like it's a bit pointless sometimes when it feels like it's like that, if that makes sense. So that's where you might have felt heartbroken, if that makes sense. I feel like, okay, also, this is third party energy. This isn't like someone cheating on you in this case. I feel like it's more to do with people trying to get into your head about in terms of like what your social circle, trying to figure out like what's going on with you, and that's getting into your thought patterns in a negative way, and that's making you feel heartbroken, if that makes sense. Like when people start questioning what you're doing in your love life and you're not necessarily doing great, it can bring that up in you, even if nothing's actually happening in your love life in a negative way, if that makes sense. Like it's not overtly like heartbreaking, but it feels like there's a pain there, if that makes sense. So you're assessing where you're going and how far it will take you, and it's like cost benefit analysis, trying to figure out like, is it worth it, what's happened already, kind of thing. Just one more. So yeah, it's a Page of Coins. So at some point, um, I'd say probably 11 weeks, you'll have that kind of moment of like, I want to do something with what I already have, and because it's like you're not trying to figure out who you are anymore. You know who you are, what you want. You've already made your plans. You've already invested quite a lot of time, energy, and money, into who you are. You're not going back and becoming a different person to attract a new person. You're doing you. So at that point, you should feel like, I'm moving forward, but it depends on whether he wants to join you or not, because it's not 100% that he's not going to be there either. It feels like he's going to try hanging around, but like in a kind of, we should meet in a general relaxed kind of way, but it's like a never-ending loop the way he goes about it. There's no definitive anything from him. So yeah, sorry for that. That's kind of what I'm getting from the whole thing. Yes, so I'll go on with the sign stuff. So there's Moon, Mars, Pluto, Jupiter, and Neptune we're looking at. Okay, so we've got the Moon representing the resources, the emotions, the dynamics at play between things, and generating that. And then there's Mars representing Scorpio in this case, maintaining those resources and all that, if that makes sense. And Pluto does the same thing. So Pluto, when you talk about Scorpio, it's about like how other people get involved in your stuff, if that makes sense, because it hits after the seventh house side of your life, you hit, and after Libra, you hit other people, and everything from Libra onwards, you can read from, if you read it from that perspective, it's almost like the seventh house can be like your first house. If you're reading, say for example, the seventh house represents someone else's first house, someone else, and the eighth house represents someone else's second house, and stuff like that. So this is representing, Pluto can represent someone else's cash, someone else's cash flow, because that's what Taurus usually represents, and it's on the opposite side of the chart. By the time you hit Jupiter, it's learning and adapting emotions in this case, and Neptune is the same thing in terms of like the Piscean element of this, that they share. And so it's about letting go. Jupiter represents the knowledge base that comes from that, like that the insights that would have led to that. When it comes to Jupiter, because it has Sag already in it, the relationship between Sag and Pisces is like a square. So Neptune gives can give Jupiter resources in my in the way I've seen in my astrology before, in terms of when I practiced it, and Jupiter wait and Jupiter can give Neptune like a rise in career and like status, because it can be quite expansive and like directed, whereas like Neptune can be quite almost anywhere and everywhere that there is flow is going to go, kind of thing. So it's not as concrete as Saturn. If you put Saturn next to Neptune, it would like really ground it, but Jupiter gives it like a clear cut direction. I want this one thing, go that way, kind of thing. So it kind of pinpoints it, but it's optimistic enough for Neptune to follow, kind of thing. So these have like a really strange connection with each other. Moon and Jupiter usually are opposite each other anyway in people's charts, and a lot of people's charts. Mars and Pluto go well with each other. Mars and Moon can make someone very like quick to anger, quick to have feelings, quick to have, but also very quick to be wanting to protect their identity, because Mars can represent who you are, your willpower, and that kind of thing. If you can figure out your moon, then sort of being able to maintain, because this is, people talk about like the moon like it's a very fragile thing. If you handle your moon well, by the time you hit Scorpio and Mars and Pluto, like energies, you can maintain the energy that you generated. So in terms of your emotions, you can like handle the deeper level of it, because the shallow level you made it into something that wasn't toxic. And by the time you've got to adapt it and learn from it, and see what needs to be letting go of, if that makes sense, let go of, then you've got enough wisdom from Jupiter and that kind of creativity and ability to tap into the divine and your subconscious, for it to be kind of like a dreamy spiritual experience. So it really depends on how you play this. Emotions are, and it's also because the water signs represent like the in between of things. So, say for example, the moon sign represents, people go a bit weird during the full moon. It's like even the police come out during, and they recognize it as like a weird time frame for people acting up during the full moon. Mars, because Scorpio represents the underlying patterns and stuff. If you think about actual scorpions, the actual like animal, well, not animal, I can't remember what you call it, like the real one. It it can detect anything that changes within like within its peripheral kind of like vision, within an atom, at an atomic level, basically. So when you're talking like what level can scorpions kind of detect something, it'd be like an atomic level. By the time you hit Neptune, you're talking waves, and because it represents the sea and cosmic waves. I would say I'd put it down to like even quantum. You know what I mean? If you're talking about the stuff that needs, because Neptune represents like things being changing from one form to another. So you could even say like the transition from one body to another, being given a physical. Because after this is like, after Pisces is Aries, is your body, so you're given your physical body at that point. Pisces is at the and Neptune talk about like the inheritances from your ancestors that you are supposed to like live out in this one. So it's your karma in that way, but specifically from your ancestors. So it's what you're given before you get into your physical body again, if you're talking reincarnation. So these are quite deep planets. They can all be, they're not really well taught how to deal with in modern day life in general, in terms of like, which when we're talking about Mars and Jupiter, we're really only talking about them in terms of like, go out there and make something of yourself in the world and be self-directed. We're not really taught about like deal with your psychological issues that way. Like that shit's suppressed in society a lot. When you talk about Jupiter and Pisces and stuff like that, your dream world and your subconscious isn't really dealt with in a healthy way. There's a lot of unhealthy ways we're taught about it. So, Pisces and stuff can also talk about things we partake in and stuff like that. That are distractions. Best way to describe it. They don't numb anything. They just usually distract. So they kind of just, it's a way of dissipating energy, but it's not necessarily you in control, which makes you feel like you can't consciously do it, if that makes sense. But yeah, so these are the planets covered, and let me go into the other ones. Alright, so this now is down to Vesta and Chiron. These aren't planets, these are dwarf planets or asteroids. I think they're asteroids. So Vesta is okay, in Rome they used to have this thing where they say if there's a hearth fire, I think. Basically they keep that alight in Rome, and it represents the fact that the rulers are still ruling in Rome. So if that went out, it would show that it had been taken over and it was like a revolution and Rome is gone, done for. It's the goddess within your sacred spiritual center and quiet dignity. Also, another weird tidbit. Basically, and maybe this speaks to the lack of maturity of that kind of civilization, but whatever. The Vesta priestesses apparently used to be seen as like the people who would dissipate the negative energy that came from the warriors who were bloodlusty after battle elsewhere, and then in order to integrate them into regular society and stop them from being very aggressive to the regular citizens, instead of policing them, they ended up saying the high priestesses would have to like sleep with them in order for their sexual energy to be dissipated, and so they would kind of like calm down. So I just think that's an interesting thing to know about Vesta. Usually that part of it doesn't manifest in people's day-to-day life, so you don't have to worry about that when you're looking at your Vesta. Really, your Vesta would actually represent where you need to keep your burning passion in your life. So things interest to keep it ignited, like Mars and Aries represents new passions and new fire. Leo represents this maintaining a fire, maintaining energy, maintaining willpower, and so does Vesta. So Vesta, I would say, has a lot of similarities to Leo that way, but it's just usually not seen as the version of Leo that is in control, telling other people what to do. It's in just the maintaining the energy. Because if you also think about it, like it was at the heart of the city, I think, and or was it at the edge of the city? But yeah. Leo can also represent the center of a city. So Vesta representing the heart of the fire of the city, and the city's flames being lit, kind of go hand in hand. Okay, so the other one is Chiron. If you're dealing with this in a mature way, your healing power, empathy, and ability to teach or learn remedies are represented by Chiron. Basically, it's the wounded healer. It's the bad things happen to you, so you figured out how to cope with them, and you now teach those coping mechanisms to other people, and hopefully they're healthy, kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, depends where your Chiron is in your chart, but it will basically show all that, and it will, if you're intuitive in any kind of way, this is probably what is going to be calling on you the most, in order for you to you feel this energy a lot, in terms of like, this is where you feel a lot of your wounds, and you'll also be most useful to other people. It'll be inspiring for the other people around you to like learn from you in that way. A lot of healers tend to have to go through a whole bunch of stuff, and then that's the stuff that they teach to other people in terms of coping with them, their coping mechanisms. It's the stuff that ends up really impacting other people a lot. It doesn't, like if you think about these things, these are really just principles. They're not really, you don't have to believe in the gods and all that stuff to practice these principles. Helping someone along with what you've been struggling with is just basically a humane thing to do. And most of these principles, whether it's the planet or asteroid, whatever, will show you how you can live in tune or in sync with principles that play in life and get the most out of it, if that makes sense. I think that made sense. I am now officially too tired to talk very well, so I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you. I've now done all of that. I will be putting this down in a more organised fashion. I'll check out everything I just put down so that it's better put together. And then I will be putting up a course somewhere. Keep in touch. I've got my YouTube channel at Fractal Astro Tarot on YouTube, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well, and TikTok that way. If you do want to contact me about readings and stuff, it's in the description below. And just email me if that stuff becomes a bit just confusing, and we'll sort that out. I'll do 20, 30, 40 and 60-minute readings. I do the astrology ones, I do the tarot ones, I do the astro tarot ones, and we can speak about something specific, kind of like the way that I did readings for like a couple of people just here. Yeah, I also do the courses, and I at some point will be putting out like books. You can join an email newsletter, or Patreon's the best place, because then you can have like on top of that you can have like a subscription thing, so that you can check in like for a few pounds a month. I'll do readings on math, and then also for specific people, maybe people who contributed more, they get specific readings and stuff like that, just off the cuff. But also on my website you will get like extra top up points, vouchers, so you can just buy a car top up. So if you know you're gonna like get a bunch of readings throughout the month, then you can buy it ahead of time and then figure out what you want to say ahead of time, so that you're really prepared. You've written down all your questions, and so you can also write down all the answers and have it as a little playbook for yourself, and be strategic about how you're gonna, problem solve and go after the things you want. And at some point, I'll be doing a manifestation workshop, relationship workshop, and business ones as well, for how to like manifest for them, and get the best out of your life. Okay, all right. Thank you. Take care. Bye.